This is my interview with the developer of lolMiner, in which I ask him how the LHR unlocker actually works, if we'll ever see a full 100% LHR unlock, as well as what mining might look like after the end of Ethereum mining. That and a lot more in this video coming up. Warning, there are people pretending to be me in the comments and on social platforms. I'll never ask you to add me on WhatsApp or Telegram, and I'll never ask you to send me money, crypto, or your personal information. Alright? So please be careful, use your common sense, and don't let any of these imposters fool you. Alright? Now back to the video. Hey, how's it going, GPU heads? Thanks for clicking on my video. 𝗧-𝗦𝗪𝗧𝗦 here. And in this video, as I said, I sit down with lollydeeb, which is the developer of lolMiner. We talk about LHR and how that works and how the unlocker works, as well as if we will see a full unlock at some point. But we also talk a lot about why he chooses to add support for certain coins, what mining might look like after the end of Ethereum mining, as well as a very interesting discussion on dual mining. But of course, let's get the really important stuff out the way first. Is it lolMiner or is it lolMiner?
I'm mostly, for me, calling it lolMiner.
lolMiner. Yeah.
Actually never put any thinking about this name.
But our very first topic we spoke about in depth was LHR, and my very first question was, what actually happens that makes the hash rate slow down inside of a GPU when the LHR limiter kicks in?
So what's going on internally? What Nvidia did is almost like a one-bit switch that turns a specific timing of the GDDR memory, much slower than it's used to be. Mostly that is the activation rate. So the moment the actual lock happens, we're suddenly forced with way worse memory timings than we're used to before. Yeah, and of course that is cutting down the hash rate very much. Well, all of this is a combination of the GPU and the driver. So the GPU needs to have the ability to do this lock in first place, and also needs kind of sensors. So what Nvidia is doing is taking measurements of activation rate, especially read rate of the GPUs, and compare that with certain threshold values. And the moment we're above a certain threshold, where there is some kind of small little evil counter clocking up once. Well, first warning. And then, well, let's assume measurement interval is 1 second, a second later, 2, 3. Well, the moment we hit 5, the lock is engaged.
So of course my next question was, what is the GPU actually looking for in order to determine that the LHR limiter should kick in? Is it looking specifically for the Ethereum algorithm? And then how come the LHR limiter doesn't kick in for other algorithms like, Ravencoin's 𝗕𝗏 algorithm?
The reason is, I believe, at least, I'm not 100% sure, but let's say from my experimental view. With 𝗕𝗏, first of all, the mining generally is a little bit slower. We don't have as many memory accesses. Also, the access size we have in 𝗕𝗏 is larger than we have in ETH. In ETH, for every time we look up something in the DAG, we access 128 bytes, while on 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗕𝗏, the miners access 256 bytes.
Oh, okay.
So, it's double the size. And therefore, well, if you just count the memory addresses and let's say the activation rate of the memory, then this is only half compared with ETH. Yeah, just half as much. Because we access longer sections, so we load longer sections of the memory into the core, and that puts down the activation rate of the memory. And I think this is the thing Nvidia monitors. When we're above a certain activation rate, we're getting a lock. If not, well, we do not. And I believe that those algorithms are just a little bit too low in the activation rate, so we don't
Very interesting. So it's not exactly looking for the Ethereum mining algorithm or whatever. It's more just it's looking for a specific kind of memory activation or memory read.
Kind of the access pattern. Yeah.
Access pattern,
I have, for example, tested what happens if I take 𝗧hash and replace. Well, there are also cryptographic hash functions in 𝗧hash. Yeah, we have this 𝗕𝗏𝗥 in the beginning, this 𝗧-𝗦 type of computing. If you just replace that by something else, taking similar time, well, it just behaves like 𝗧hash. Also, if you take the typical 𝗧hash constants, yeah, there are some constants in the algorithm, and replace that by something different, well, it still locks. If you instead replace all the memory reads by memory writes, it doesn't lock. It behaves. It works like the algorithm has full speed. So obviously, it does very much distinguish between read and write access.
So remember what he told us, that when LHR kicks in, it kind of starts this countdown in order to start the limiting of the hash rate. Well, my next question was, how does the unlocker actually work?
Well, what can count to 3 or 4, 5 can also count backwards. So what we're currently doing is kind of alternating work that is above and below the threshold. So we kind of mine full speed for a very short time, yeah, like below 3-4 seconds. And then we schedule in work that is slower than the maximum Nvidia allows. Well, we needed to find that maximum first, and then find ways to slow down our own mining kernels somehow to keep our card from locking. And yeah, when we wait long enough, then the card is completely disengaged again, and we can start a small section of full speed mining again. And this is more or less how it works. That's also the reason when you monitor an LHR card mining closely and you have a close look to the energy input it takes, you'll see it kind of looks like a jigsaw. Yeah? It's going up and down. And that's exactly the reason why, because we need to artificially slow down our own mining in order to not having it locked. The reason you're seeing a kind of stable hash rate at all is just because we're putting the averaging interval for the miner display just long enough to cover a full
cycle.
Full cycle, a full sequence. And so we're getting a clean average. But in fact, we're mining, let's say on a 3070, we're mining with 60 mega hashes for 3 seconds, and then 4 to 5 seconds with just 31 mega hash, and that averages out to something like 45 or so. Yeah.
So basically, the technique of pushing that hash rate up and up is just a matter of optimizing, being able to mine at the full hash rate for longer and dipping down to the slower hash rate for shorter.
Yeah, then that's the one part. Of course, the other one is getting the slower mining faster. Yeah, that's the second opportunity to mine quicker.
So will we be able to see a full 100% unlock using this approach?
No, not 100%. In fact, now with 78+%, we're pretty much at the limit of this. Of course, unless someone finds a faster slow kernel that doesn't lock.
But wait, that doesn't mean that there might not be other ways we could beat LHR 100%. This is what he had to say.
Another approach would be if we can somehow trick the driver to think, okay, this is not mining load at all, or to somehow, well, shoot the driver into a state that it doesn't detect the miner, then we might be able to unlock 100%.
Okay, so very interesting. So while not impossible that we might see 100% unlock, it would have to use a very different approach to what we're using right now in terms of unlocking hash rate.
The Nvidia devs, well, they are not stupid. They did know people will try to shoot it somehow, and they are really integrated that very deep into the driver. You know, the driver itself is signed, and also the firmware on the GPU is signed. And signed firmware will only accept signed drivers, so we just can't rewrite the driver, even now where, well, some of the sources are leaked. By the way, not completely, and yeah, I'll never admit I've had a look into that.
Oh, yeah, no.
Can sue me because of that.
No. We know nothing about that at all. No.
We don't know nothing about that.
But hypothetically, if we did, it would be
Well, it's still, even if you've got the full sources, then you might be able to code that out of the driver, but then the firmware of the GPU won't accept that.
Right. Yeah, so there's a two-part thing there where not only would you need to create basically a cracked driver, but also a cracked firmware for the actual GPU.
Yeah.
So when you say firmware, is that what usually we refer to as a BIOS for the...
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
Okay. So if we'd want to make a full LHR unlock, then we'd have to make a cracked driver. However, since the BIOS on our GPUs is signed, that means it won't accept a cracked driver because, you know, that driver won't be signed. So we'd have to make a cracked BIOS as well. However, that's not quite the same if Nvidia wanted to do it.
Maybe someday they will allow us, when ETH is over, and well, it might be we can at some point mine ETC when they allow us to, because it is really something they could turn off in the driver.
Yeah.
They just would need to do a driver release, but
yeah. But okay,
I fear
so that's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I fear that's not happening too soon.
Yeah, but that's interesting. So Nvidia could choose to just turn LHR off in a driver tomorrow if they so wanted.
Yeah.
Wow.
If they wanted, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's actually not that there is something actual physical on the card. Well, there is, but they could circumvent that with just the driver.
It's always the interaction of the driver with the card. The card reports, I got this fuse, and I've got the triggers, and well, but the driver is actually the thing that triggers.
The pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. I then asked him about how different GPU models seem to have different versions of LHR, starting with the first version of the 3060, which seemed to be different from the full LHR ones that we have now.
In fact, the card itself isn't that much different. Well, it obviously got a different device ID, so we can't run it on the same drivers. But most of the difference is actually the drivers.
Okay.
So if I now take this very first edition of the 3060 and run it on the newer drivers, I'm exactly getting the behavior of version 2 of that card.
I then asked him about the 3080 12GB GPU that seemed to have a newer version of LHR. What's going on with the 3080 12GB card? There's something different about it, isn't there?
Yeah, the same as for the 3050.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't help you much.
But no one cares about the 3050, right?
What Nvidia did different there is they added a second layer of check. They don't only have this high-low scheme, so the kind of ticking up and ticking down. They actually, the moment they see some high spot, they kind of start a new measurement and then take the average of a certain interval from that moment that high spot started. And well, that's new, that's different. And that of course allows that, well, we still can run a kind of 𝗧-𝗦 pattern, but then the lows need to be so low that the complete average is below the threshold. So alternatively, we also can just mine all of the time straight at the threshold. It doesn't simply make a difference. So with that change, they actually broke our method to unlock. Yeah.
So basically, that will be a much harder lock to break?
That's pretty much the reason why we're now locked to like 60% mining or something like that.
Yeah.
In fact, if the card is locked, it only does like 45%. So that already is an achievement over the way it just comes from the factory. But well, it's not really satisfying mining at 60%, especially the short intervals where we can mine full speed. We see this card is perfectly able to do almost 100 mega hashes. It could, if Nvidia would allow us.
A small question I had for you, because a lot of people were very much, ask him how much money he makes from the development fee, and I'm obviously not going to ask that. That's a very rude question to ask, but I will tweak the question a little bit, and also feel free to not answer if you don't feel comfortable. What I just want to know is developing lolMiner your full-time job? Can you sustain your living off of the development fee you get from there?
Yeah, it does. Right now, it is my full-time job. It had been since the beginning of 2021. So actually, a little bit like 3 months after I started doing ETH, and indeed became large enough. Well, back then I was one of the 2 miners offering this zombie mode for the RX 400 and 500 cards, and that boosted the thing enough to make it sustainable for me to have that as my main income. Yeah.
He then shared with me his thoughts on adding overclocking support into the miner, which was really interesting to hear.
Well, that wasn't always easy. For example, my miner still is lacking some of the basic overclocking commands. Yeah, it just can't do that because I thought in the beginning, oh dear, especially in the very beginning, the miner always was a little buggy. There was always some smaller glitches, and I just thought, okay, no, I won't do overclocking. If I do anything wrong there and people grill their GPUs, I don't want to get taken responsible for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was the thing in the beginning, and then later on I realized how many people are out there on 𝗢𝗡𝗙, MMP, RaveOS, simple mining, and so on. Well, and all those mining OSs already have the basic functionality that people search for, like a fan control, like basic overclocking. So I don't need it. So I put my time into developing other things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good approach, because being a one-man team, your time is obviously limited, and
it surely is.
Yeah. And overclocking within the mining software, while that is great if you are a Windows miner, if you're using any of those other operating systems, it's not really important. Now, something I was very curious to ask him about is how he decides what coins he should add support for in his miner.
Well, I'd say that the most important source is still like CoinGecko. Having a look, okay, which of those projects are still feasible to mine on GPU and which I didn't have covered. But also a lot of listening into the community, like with, for example, with Ton mining. In the beginning, Ton was listed on like almost no exchanges, and I very much underestimated it. But then got that many requests. So, okay, we'd like to mine Ton, but there's no real good mining or no established mining software around that can do it. And well, if just, let's say, enough requests per week arrive at mine, then at some point I'd say, I maybe should give it a shot. Like Ton was on that list, Ethereum was on that list. Ethereum certainly, when I didn't have it. But then you need to think, okay, is it actually worth it? Because there are already certain mining softwares that, are already in a good spot, and they already do the work very well. So is there really something I can earn there? Will there be much people actually using it? Can I really do it better than the other miners have? So I'm more like on a search for dead spots, something that the people didn't cover yet.
Now, since he kind of has this perspective from behind the scenes a little bit with being a developer, I just had to ask him what his opinion is on what might happen to mining after the end of Ethereum mining. So this is what he had to say about that.
Well, what I'm kind of expecting is in the beginning, of course, the profitability will drop. It will also drop quite a lot because, well, right now we're like doing 80% ETH hash or something like that. If you look to that, no, more than 80% ETH hash, but 80% Ethereum. Ethereum Classic has like 5% or so, and then well, the others following. Therefore, I assume we will see a lot of pressure onto many coins. But in my opinion, that also could be a kind of chance for many projects. Because, well, miners are always like the first believers in the project you have. When you start a new coin, the miners are the first one that actually get their hands dirty with the coin, trying to spend it, trying to exchange it, and so on. So if you have a lot of miners inflowing into other coins, some of the other projects will suddenly be faced with way more attention than they had before. Just because, okay, you're the next best opportunity. And well, for some of those projects, that actually might be a kind of small ignition, a kind of chance they have with new users inflowing. Because, well, for me, most of the crypto stuff is like a little bit like a social network. If you have a social network with just one user, well, it's pretty worthless. No one would ever use it. The more people are believing into a certain coin, the more users take that into their hands, spending it, going to exchanges, doing something, talking about it. The more recognition it got, usually the more it rises in value. So I personally expect some projects will launch exactly when Ethereum drops off, in order kind of catch some of those users leaving Ethereum in order to skyrocket the project. If it actually works, I don't know. But generally, I don't expect GPU mining to die completely. And I kind of hope and cross fingers we will see the next 3 months to half a year after Ethereum mining passed away. We see some new projects we can mine on maybe a lower profitability. It will take years to come back to the current level, but it won't be gone completely.
We then had a really interesting discussion on whether dual mining could be a viable way of increasing mining profitability after the Ethereum merge to proof of stake.
Looking past mining after the merge, something a lot of people were asking me about is, how come you can't dual mine a lot of coins? Like, why can you not mine Flux together with Ergo at the same time and things like that? Is that something that you would be looking at all, or is that impossible? Or do you think that could be a way to sort of increase profitability as a miner after the merge, or what's your take on that, basically?
Well, in the concrete example, Flux and Ergo both partially at least utilize the same resources on the GPU. So well, this is a little bit more complicated. Like, also some people ask me to do Ergo plus Ton, but Ergo has a problem, at least on many older cards. We need pretty much of the core power that's available because we need to rebuild this data set every 2 to 3 minutes. And yeah, also during the mining, there's a hash part always concatenated to some access also to the memory. and the hash part is much longer than on Ethereum. So we have less GPU core time to spare for dual mining. So with Ergo, it may be complicated. Also with other algorithms like Capo on Raven, for example, that was specifically designed to utilize the GPU as a whole, to make it almost impossible to build ASICs for it, because an ASIC would almost need to mimic what a GPU is able to do. And well, those algorithms are very hard to dual mine with anything, because, well, the cards are getting quite hot already as a whole. Yeah, memory both, and the core as well. So there will certainly pop up some opportunities to dual mine stuff. For Flux, for example, I could imagine that something like Flux plus LF could work. But well, for some projects it will work. For others, it will not.
Okay, so it's basically it's more to do with what the algorithms actually look like, and less to do with you, because I think a lot of people are under the impression of like, oh, Ergo is a memory intensive and Capo is core intensive, so they could go together, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah
Okay, that's good to know, because I think from my perspective, you know, as someone who doesn't understand how it goes on under the hood, I'm like, oh, let's figure out a way where you can kind of switch which coins you're dual mining all the time to always pick the two most profitable ones, and then maybe you throw in some Silica in there as well to triple mine. And
that's actually a thing. Silica is a little bit different, because for most algorithms, those is just sequential mined. You know, Silica mining only takes place like 2 minutes in 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is actually something I'm certain we can build into many other algorithms. And we even might need to do so once the merge has happened. Because, yeah, right now, Silica chain is kind of relying on having many ETH miners doing this in parallel, or not really in parallel, but in sequence. So what will happen when ETH is gone? Well, we then need a new carrier for Silica mining. And that can be built into literally any other algorithm, because, well, we just then need to stop it, do the ZIL mining for those 2 minutes, and then to restart the other algorithm again.
Yeah,
that's certainly something we can implement on other algorithms.
Yeah. Probably they might pop up other coins that work that same way, because what a great opportunity to get people to mine your coin, because they can mine it while they're mining something else anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And I think maybe that's a good part to end on for today. It's almost 10 p.m. I could sit here and I could talk with you forever, I feel like, but let's maybe call it here. Thank you so very much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Talking to me. I feel like if we talk anymore, my brain might explode, because I've been learning so much. So thank you so much, and yeah, hopefully we can chat again sometime.
I'm sure.
All right.
Maybe if the community comes up with some more questions now that they seen the results of the first set of questions, maybe.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'll ask them to leave the questions in the comments.
Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it one of these. And if you really liked it, you can now join the channel to help support what I do here. It really does make a big difference, and it means a lot to me, so thank you. But what you gotta do now is you gotta click on that next video on the screen. Because this video is over, you can also click the picture on my face to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, go click on that next video, and I'll see you there. Goodbye. Goodbye, bye bye.